Okay, this is part 5 of my video series on Mount Meru, Avalon and Atlantis. In this video I'm going to present further evidence that Avalon is the same place as Atlantis and Mount Meru. Okay, so I've mentioned this book in my part 2 video, Paradise Found, the Cradle of the Human Race at the North Pole. If you're interested in this information I'm presenting, I highly recommend you have a read through this book. Okay, in this book there's a very small, short story on a Danish knight who goes by the name of Olger or Holger. I'm not going to read out the whole story, I just want to read out some key parts that pretty much match up with my conclusions about Mount Meru, Atlantis and Avalon all being the same place. And interestingly, this ties back into King Arthur as well. So, I just want to read out the key parts. So there's this bit here. A more elaborate and fanciful picture of the same medieval paradise is furnished us in the story of Olger or Holger, a Danish knight of the age of Charlemagne. So on page 14, the story continues to go on. At that moment, the great ship in which Olger had left, his men-at-arms struck against a rock, and he saw them all perish, at which sight he was like to die of grief. And presently a Loadstone rock began to draw towards it the boat in which Olger was in. Okay. Now, I wasn't really familiar with this term Loadstone, so I had to look it up. Now, that Loadstone means magnetic rock. Okay. So when you see that, think of Mount Meru being a magnetic rock. Okay. He's on page 15. Meanwhile, the boat continued to float upon the water till it reached the Loadstone castle, which they call the Chateau d'Avalon. Okay, so here we have it in writing saying there's a magnetic rock with a castle on it, and it's called Chateau d'Avalon. Here we've got a rendition of Avalon Castle up the top. Okay, so according to this story, we've got a magnetic rock, magnetic mountain with a castle up the top, and it's called Avalon. Okay, and so continuing on page 16, and when thou art on the island, thou wilt find a small path leading to the castle. He saw before him the ships that were fastened to the Loadstone rock, and now he walked from ship to ship, and so gained the island. And when there, he at once set himself to scale the hill by a path which he found. Okay, so I'm skipping parts of the story here. So he makes it to the castle, he has a bit of a look around, kills a few things, and then he says, seeing these fruits, he sees a garden with some fruit trees in it, right? So he's seen the fruit so fine, desired to eat some, and presently he lighted upon a fine apple tree. Okay, so here we go, another connection with Avalon, the apple island, the apple tree, whose fruit was like gold. So here we've got another connection to the Greek mythology of gold apples, and of these apples he took one and ate. But at this moment, turning around, he was aware of a fair dame. I am she who was at your birth, and my name is Morgan Le Fay. Okay, so Morgan Le Fay, if you know your King Arthur legends, more in particular Excalibur, the movie Excalibur, Morgan Le Fay is King Arthur's half sister, she's the person who apparently studies under Merlin and becomes a healer, a magician, pretty much the same as Merlin, and here she is at Avalon. And she gave me a ring which had such virtue that Ogre was near 100 years old and he returned to the age of 30. Now the next part of the story is not particularly clear, but I think it's referring to King Arthur. Okay, so I'll read it out. And presently came Arthur, and Morg called to him and said, "Come hither, my lord and brother." So that sounds like King Arthur is there as well. So anyway, that's pretty much the end of the summary of the story of Ogre, but check this out. Okay, this is a statue of him that I found on the internet, and check out his shield. Okay, now if that isn't a map of Avalon, I don't know what it is. Okay, it's so obvious. Okay, so we've got Mount Meru, or the magnetic Loadstone, we've got the castle on top, and you got these rings around it. You compare this to Borobudur that I've mentioned before, compare the shield to this, and it looks pretty much the same. Okay, so obviously over time these circular islands have deteriorated, and so you've got 3 in this depiction, 2 on the shield. It looks pretty much identical. Okay, and then you compare it to this map from the, I think it's from the 1500s, where you've got the circular islands around here. So obviously there must have been more islands around at some point. Where exactly is hard to know, but presumably there was 3 rings of these islands. So maybe this map isn't quite to scale. Obviously, it's gone from 3 to 2 to 1, and it's just deteriorated over hundreds of years. Okay, so you would, so it looks like we've got Morgan Le Fay at Avalon in the later part of her life. With King Arthur, she's been healing him, and this other guy Olga there, and she's giving Ogre rings to turn him from 100 to back to 30 years. Actually, the story goes further on. The story goes that she sends him back, and must be like 100 years later, because no one that he knew lived any longer. So very interesting story. I highly recommend you check it out for yourself, have a read of it, and you'll see all the connections with King Arthur and Avalon. That's so obvious, it's unbelievable.